The first step to speaking English with authority is understanding that your confidence in communication starts from within. Imagine walking into a room and knowing that whatever you say will carry weight, not because you're loud, but because your words are precise, thoughtful, and deliberate. Authority in speech comes from a blend of preparation, mindset, and practice. It begins with understanding your own voice. Many people underestimate the power of vocal tone. A voice that is calm, steady, and clear conveys confidence instantly. You don't need to shout or force your words. Instead, focus on your breathing, posture, and pacing. A well-timed pause can be more powerful than a rapid flood of words. For example, in business settings, a slight pause before answering a question signals that you are considering your words carefully, giving them more weight. Equally important is the choice of words. Speaking with authority doesn't mean using complicated or flowery language. In fact, simplicity often has more impact. Consider leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Steve Jobs. Their words were not overly complex, yet they resonated deeply because they were clear, confident, and purposeful. Focus on clarity. Choose words that accurately convey your message without hesitation. Avoid filler words like like, or you know, which can dilute your authority. Instead, replace them with a brief pause if needed. Silence, when used effectively, can emphasize your point and make your speech more memorable. Another key aspect is body language. Your voice may carry authority, but your body reinforces it. Stand or sit upright, make natural eye contact, and use gestures to underline important points. Avoid fidgeting or crossing your arms, as these can signal insecurity. People often respond more to how you deliver your words than to the words themselves. A strong presence, combined with a confident tone, signals that you are someone whose opinion matters. Mindset is equally critical. Many English learners struggle with speaking confidently because of fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of judgment, or fear of sounding wrong. To speak with authority, you must first accept that mistakes are part of learning. Embrace them as opportunities rather than failures. Shift your focus from perfection to clarity. Your goal is to communicate effectively and assertively, not to deliver flawless sentences. Reading and listening also play a vital role. Pay attention to speakers who naturally exude authority. Watch TED Talks, political speeches, or interviews with experts in fields you admire. Notice how they structure their sentences, the pacing of their speech, and the moments when they pause for emphasis. Listen to how they stress certain words to convey importance, and how they use intonation to keep the audience engaged. Mimicking these techniques initially can help you internalize patterns of authoritative speech, which you can then adapt to your own natural style. Reduce noise. Vocabulary and phrasing matter, but confidence in delivery often overweights advanced language. If you choose words thoughtfully and deliver them with intention, even simple sentences can command respect. Avoid unnecessary qualifiers like "I think" or "maybe" at the start of your sentences, which can undermine your authority. Instead, begin with strong statements such as "the data shows" or "this approach works because." Phrases like these convey certainty without arrogance. Finally, practice is non-negotiable. Authority in English doesn't happen overnight. It requires consistent effort. Speak aloud, record yourself, and review your recordings to identify areas for improvement. Practice in front of a mirror or with friends who can provide constructive feedback. Join speaking clubs or discussion groups where you can experiment with tone, pace, and expression in a supportive environment. Every small step builds confidence, which translates directly into authoritative speech. Remember, speaking with authority in English is not about perfection, loudness, or a vast vocabulary. It's about clarity, intention, confidence, and presence. It's about believing in what you have to say and delivering it with calm assertiveness. The more you internalize these principles, the more natural your authoritative voice will become. You are not just speaking English, you are commanding it, and every word you utter carries weight and meaning. Now that we've explored the foundational elements of speaking English with authority, it's time to focus on one of the most overlooked aspects of powerful communication: the power of mindset and self-belief. You can have perfect grammar, a large vocabulary, and a strong accent, but if your mind is filled with doubt, hesitation, or fear, your words will not carry authority. To speak English with power, you must first believe in the value of what you have to say. Authority comes from confidence rooted in preparation, self-assurance, and authenticity. Think of your mind as a stage. Every time you speak, you are performing, not in the theatrical sense, but in the sense that your presence, energy, and confidence fill the space around you. Before you even open your mouth, your mindset shapes how your voice is perceived. A confident mind produces a confident voice. If you approach conversations thinking, "I might make a mistake," or "I hope they understand me," your voice will inevitably sound uncertain. On the other hand, when you approach communication with the belief that your words are valuable, your tone becomes steady, deliberate, and commanding. Visualization is a powerful tool for building this mindset. Take a few minutes each day to visualize yourself speaking English fluently and confidently. Picture yourself in a meeting, presenting to colleagues, or engaging in casual conversation, and imagine the positive reactions of others, nods of agreement, attentive listening, and respectful responses. Visualization prepares your brain to act confidently in real-life situations. Your subconscious mind begins to internalize this version of yourself, and over time, your speech will naturally align with the confident image you've created. Another crucial element is reframing mistakes as opportunities. Many people fear speaking English because they associate mistakes with embarrassment or failure. But authority in communication is not about flawless execution. It's about composure, clarity, and resilience. Every time you make a mistake, you have a choice: shrink back or maintain your presence and continue. People who speak with authority are not those who never err. They are those who recover gracefully, maintain calm, and keep the conversation flowing. This resilience communicates confidence far more than perfect grammar ever could. Listening is another key pillar in building authoritative speech. Powerful communicators are not just skilled at speaking, they are exceptional listeners. When you listen actively, you understand the context, the concerns of your audience, and the emotional undertones of the conversation. This understanding allows you to respond thoughtfully and assertively. For example, imagine a situation where a colleague challenges your idea. A reactive speaker may respond defensively or hastily, but an authoritative speaker listens carefully, considers the point, and replies with a clear, measured response that strengthens their credibility. Active listening signals intelligence, empathy, and confidence, all of which enhance the perceived authority of your speech. One common mistake learners make is focusing solely on language mechanics. Grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation are important, of course, but they are only tools. Authority comes from how you use these tools, not from their mere presence. A perfectly grammatical sentence delivered without confidence or clarity may fall flat, while a simple sentence spoken with composure, emphasis, and conviction commands respect. Therefore, always prioritize clarity of thought and intention over perfection in execution. Ask yourself, does this sentence communicate my idea clearly? Am I expressing this point in a way that others can easily follow? When the answer is yes, your authority is amplified. Next, consider the rhythm and pacing of your speech. Many people rush through their sentences, either out of nervousness or excitement. Rapid speech can make you sound anxious or unsure, while deliberate pacing signals control and authority. Use pauses strategically. Pauses allow your audience to absorb your message and give your words more weight. A well-placed pause before a key point draws attention, while a pause after a statement emphasizes its importance. Authority is as much about what you do with silence as it is about what you say. Intonation is equally critical. Monotone speech can be perceived as dull or disengaged even if the content is excellent. Vary your pitch and emphasis to keep listeners engaged. Stress important words to highlight your message. For example, instead of saying, "This is an important strategy," you can emphasize, "This is an important strategy." The subtle change in intonation makes the message more compelling. Over time, paying attention to tone, pitch, and rhythm will make your speech not just understandable, but magnetic. Another key factor is storytelling. Humans are naturally drawn to stories, and incorporating narrative elements into your speech immediately increases your influence. Even when presenting factual information, framing it as a story helps your audience connect emotionally and remember your points. For instance, instead of stating statistics in a dry manner, share a real-life example that illustrates the numbers. Storytelling builds rapport, keeps attention, and enhances the perception of authority because people feel engaged and connected to what you're saying. Body language remains an integral part of authoritative speech. It's worth emphasizing that consistency between your words and your body is critical. When your body reflects confidence, it reinforces the power of your voice. Stand tall, keep your shoulders relaxed, and maintain open gestures. Avoid nervous habits such as tapping your fingers, shifting weight excessively, or looking away. The synergy of confident body language and composed speech multiplies the impact of your message. Finally, practice intentional speaking daily. Authority is built through repetition and refinement. Set aside time each day to speak aloud in English, whether reading passages, summarizing your day, or explaining concepts to yourself. Record these sessions, listen critically, and identify areas to improve your clarity, pacing, and tone. Over time, this deliberate practice strengthens your speaking muscles and builds the automatic confidence needed to speak with authority in any situation. Remember, speaking English with power is not about imitation, it's about authenticity. Find your natural voice, refine it, and express your ideas with clarity and confidence. Authority is the result of preparation, self-belief, active listening, strategic pauses, and consistent practice. It's the intersection of mindset, voice, body language, and intention. The more you invest in these elements, the more naturally you will command attention, respect, and influence with your words. You should understand that authority starts from the inside out. Your mindset sets the tone, your listening shapes your responses, and your delivery, through tone, pace, and presence, cements your influence. Every word you speak carries weight when you combine clarity, confidence, and authenticity. You are not just learning English, you are learning to speak it with a presence that others can feel and respect. We've explored the foundational mindset and the internal elements that give your English speech authority. Now, let's dive deeper into vocal mastery, because how you sound is as important as what you say. Your voice is an instrument, and like any instrument, it can be trained to produce resonance, clarity, and influence. Speaking English with authority is as much about vocal quality as it is about vocabulary or grammar. The first thing to understand is breath control. Many people speak in short, clipped sentences or rush through their words, often because they're unaware of how to use their breath efficiently. Proper breath control allows your voice to project naturally and sustain longer sentences without strain. Begin with a simple exercise. Inhale deeply through your nose, letting your diaphragm expand, then exhale slowly while speaking a sentence. This not only gives your words power, but also helps regulate pacing and reduce nervousness. By mastering your breath, you gain a level of control over your voice that immediately commands attention. Another key factor is resonance. Resonance is the richness and depth of your voice, and it significantly affects how authoritative you sound. A voice that is too high-pitched or nasal can inadvertently convey insecurity, while a resonant voice communicates confidence and presence. To improve resonance, practice speaking from your chest rather than your throat. Place your hand lightly on your chest and feel the vibrations as you speak. Sentences that resonate through your chest naturally sound stronger and more compelling. Over time, this technique will make your speech feel fuller, deeper, and more persuasive. Reduce noise. Pacing is equally critical. When you speak too quickly, your message can become muddled, and your authority diminishes. Conversely, speaking too slowly can bore your audience or make you appear hesitant. The key is to find a balanced pace that allows your words to be absorbed and appreciated. Use natural pauses strategically to emphasize points, transition between ideas, or allow your audience to reflect on your words. For instance, after delivering a crucial statistic or an important opinion, a pause, even just a second or two, creates space for the audience to process the information, giving it more impact. Emphasis is another subtle yet powerful tool. Not every word carries the same weight, and knowing which words to stress can transform a simple sentence into a statement of authority. For example, compare the sentences, "I think we should implement this strategy," versus "we should implement this strategy." In the second version, the emphasis on should conveys confidence and decisiveness. When practicing emphasis, read sentences aloud, identify the key words, and consciously stress them. This technique trains your audience to focus on what truly matters, subtly guiding their attention while reinforcing your authority. Alongside vocal technique, articulation and clarity are essential. Mumbled or rushed words can undermine the strength of even the most intelligent ideas. Pronounce words deliberately, ensuring each syllable is clear. If a particular word is challenging, practice it slowly, then gradually increase speed while maintaining clarity. Over time, precise articulation becomes second nature, and your speech flows naturally without compromising authority. Let's also discuss the importance of confidence in volume. Speaking too softly can make you seem uncertain, while shouting can appear aggressive or unnatural. The goal is controlled projection, a voice that fills the room comfortably, commands attention without strain, and allows for nuanced expression. Practice speaking at different volumes in front of a mirror or recording device. Notice which volume feels natural, confident, and engaging. Your ideal volume is one that allows listeners to hear you clearly without effort, creating a sense of authority and presence. Equally important is expressive variation. Monotone speech can disengage even a highly interested audience. Vary your pitch, rhythm, and speed to reflect the content of your message. Excitement, urgency, curiosity, and conviction can all be conveyed through subtle shifts in tone. For example, when sharing an exciting insight, slightly raise your pitch or quicken your pace. When making a serious statement, lower your pitch and slow down. These vocal shifts signal emotion and intent, making your speech more dynamic, compelling, and persuasive. Another crucial component is reading aloud and shadowing. Choose powerful English speakers, such as TED Talk presenters or influential orators, and read their speeches aloud. Focus on mimicking their rhythm, tone, and emphasis, not to imitate, but to internalize patterns of effective speech. Shadowing involves listening to a speaker and speaking simultaneously, matching their cadence, intonation, and pauses. Both exercises train your brain and vocal muscles to produce speech that naturally commands attention. Over time, this practice integrates authoritative vocal habits into your own voice. Don't underestimate the power of self-awareness and feedback. Record yourself speaking and listen critically. Notice where your voice wavers, where you rush, or where your pitch becomes unintentionally high. Seek constructive feedback from friends, mentors, or language coaches. Objective insight allows you to adjust and refine your speech patterns, gradually increasing authority and impact. Beyond technical mastery, there's a psychological element to vocal presence, embodied authority. The way you carry yourself physically affects how your voice is perceived. Standing or sitting upright with relaxed shoulders opens your chest, facilitating deeper breaths and a fuller, more resonant voice. Avoid slouching, hunching, or looking down excessively, as these habits signal hesitation and insecurity. When your body projects confidence, your voice naturally follows, reinforcing the impression of authority. Let's also consider language framing. Authority isn't just in how you say something, it's in how you structure your ideas. Use assertive, positive language. Avoid hedging statements like, "I'm not sure, but maybe," or "this might work." Instead, frame your speech with confidence. "I recommend this approach because," or "based on the data, this strategy is proven effective." Strong, decisive phrasing enhances your voice's authority and ensures your audience perceives you as competent and confident. Finally, remember the cumulative effect of practice and reflection. Authority doesn't appear overnight. It grows through consistent effort. Daily exercises in breath control, resonance, pacing, articulation, and expressive variation gradually train your voice to project confidence naturally. Coupled with active listening, mindset work, and authentic presence, your vocal mastery becomes a key tool in speaking English with power. Over time, your words resonate not only through sound, but through the energy, presence, and conviction you convey. You should understand that mastering your voice is both a technical and psychological endeavor. Breath, resonance, pacing, emphasis, clarity, volume, and variation all work together to create a powerful presence. When combined with confidence, preparation, and authenticity, your voice becomes an instrument of influence. Each sentence you speak carries weight because it is delivered with intention, clarity, and authority. Speaking English with power is not just about language, it is about commanding attention, respect, and belief in every word you say. Now that we've covered mindset, presence, and vocal mastery, it's time to focus on the art of storytelling and persuasive communication. Speaking English with authority isn't just about how you sound or how confident you appear, it's also about how you structure your ideas and engage your audience. The human brain responds to stories far more effectively than it does to raw facts or abstract arguments. By weaving your points into narratives, you not only make your speech memorable, but also project credibility and influence. Storytelling begins with clarity of purpose. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is the key message I want my audience to remember? Whether you're giving a presentation, participating in a meeting, or engaging in casual conversation, identifying the central point helps you stay focused and authoritative. A speaker who wanders aimlessly or fills speech with irrelevant details loses credibility. Once you know your core message, structure your story around it, making each example, anecdote, or supporting point reinforce that central idea. Effective stories often follow a simple narrative arc: situation, challenge, action, and outcome. For example, imagine you're explaining the importance of teamwork in a corporate setting. You might begin with a situation. Last quarter, our team faced an unexpected challenge. Then describe the challenge. A critical project deadline was at risk because of unforeseen technical issues. Next, explain the action. We collaborated, delegated responsibilities, and stayed focused despite the pressure. Finally, conclude with the outcome. Not only did we meet the deadline, but our client praised the innovative solutions we implemented. This structure not only engages your listeners, but also positions you as a thoughtful and effective communicator. Another critical element of persuasive communication is emotional connection. People are more likely to be influenced by speakers who resonate with them on an emotional level. This doesn't mean manipulating feelings. It means showing authenticity, empathy, and understanding. For instance, when sharing a personal story or experience, highlight challenges, struggles, and the lessons learned. Vulnerability, when used appropriately, humanizes your speech and makes your authority relatable rather than intimidating. A speaker who appears both confident and empathetic gains trust, which enhances the power of their words. Analogies and metaphors are invaluable tools for authoritative speech. They simplify complex ideas, making them accessible and memorable. If you're explaining a technical concept, relate it to something familiar. For example, when discussing time management, you might say, think of your tasks like a jar filled with rocks, pebbles, and sand. Focus on the big rocks first, the most important priorities, then fit in the smaller tasks around them. This analogy instantly conveys your message clearly, and your audience is more likely to remember it. Using such tools demonstrates not only creativity, but also clarity of thought, both hallmarks of authoritative communication. Credibility is another pillar of persuasive speech. Authority comes from being perceived as knowledgeable and reliable. To build credibility, integrate facts, statistics, or examples from trusted sources into your speech. For example, if discussing environmental policies, citing studies from recognized institutions or referencing successful case studies strengthens your argument. However, credibility is most effective when balanced with approachability. Overloading your speech with statistics without context can seem cold or intimidating, whereas blending facts with stories and personal insights creates both authority and engagement. Let's talk about rhetorical techniques, which are subtle ways to reinforce authority in your speech. Techniques like repetition, parallel structure, and contrast can make your points more compelling. For example, consider Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous line, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up." The repetition of "I have a dream" reinforces the vision and leaves a lasting impression. In your speech, you can use repetition to emphasize key ideas. Our strategy is clear, our strategy is practical, our strategy will succeed. Similarly, contrast, showing the difference between two outcomes or approaches, can make your argument stronger and more memorable. Questioning is another subtle way to establish authority. Strategic questions engage your audience, provoke thought, and guide the conversation. Open-ended questions like, have you ever considered why some teams consistently outperform others, invite reflection and demonstrate that you are thinking critically, positioning you as a knowledgeable leader. Additionally, rhetorical questions, those that don't require an answer, can emphasize points effectively. For example, can we afford to ignore innovation in today's competitive market? Immediately frames the audience's thinking in alignment with your message. Confidence in content is crucial. Even the most polished delivery falls flat if you are unsure of your subject. Take the time to prepare thoroughly. Understand the nuances of your topic, anticipate potential questions or objections, and have clear, well-thought-out responses ready. Preparation reduces hesitation, reinforces your authority, and allows you to navigate complex conversations with composure. Remember, authoritative speakers are not those who speak without mistakes. They are those who speak from knowledge and respond thoughtfully under pressure. In addition to preparation, active engagement with your audience elevates authority. Observe their reactions, adjust your tone or pace based on feedback, and make eye contact. Addressing questions directly, acknowledging contributions, and responding with clarity shows both competence and respect. This dynamic interaction strengthens your influence because people feel heard and understood, making your words more persuasive. Voice modulation, which we discussed earlier, is particularly important when telling stories or persuading an audience. Modulating your pitch, pace, and volume in line with the narrative keeps listeners engaged. For example, slow down during critical moments to emphasize importance. speed up during action sequences to create energy, and lower your pitch to signal seriousness. Mastery of these subtle changes enhances the impact of your speech and reinforces authority. Finally, practice storytelling regularly. Just like vocal exercises, storytelling improves with repetition. Start by recounting simple personal experiences, gradually moving to professional or complex topics. Record your stories, review them, and notice where pacing, emphasis, or clarity can be improved. Experiment with different structures, narrative arcs, and emotional tones. Over time, your ability to craft compelling narratives will become natural, and your authority will be felt not just in words, but in the emotional resonance and engagement of your audience. Now that we've explored mindset, vocal mastery, and storytelling, it's time to focus on the importance of word choice and phrasing in speaking English with authority. The words you choose, the structure of your sentences, and the clarity of your message play a central role in how others perceive your competence and confidence. Authority is not just about speaking loudly or confidently, it's about speaking intentionally. Every word matters, and every phrase can either reinforce your power or diminish it. Let's start with precision. Authority comes from clarity, and clarity comes from using the right words for the right situation. Avoid vague terms like stuff, things, or maybe, which create uncertainty in the minds of listeners. Instead, opt for specific, concrete words that convey your message clearly. For example, instead of saying, "We need to improve our results," say, "We need to increase our quarterly sales by 15% through targeted client outreach." Specificity signals preparation, knowledge, and intentionality, qualities that immediately enhance authority. Another critical element is active versus passive language. Passive language can make your statements sound weak or indecisive. Consider the difference between "mistakes were made in the project" and "we made mistakes in the project and will correct them." The second sentence demonstrates ownership and accountability, which strengthens your authority. Active language positions you as a leader who takes responsibility, makes decisions, and acts decisively. Whenever possible, structure your sentences so that the subject performs the action rather than being acted upon.
Reduce noise. Avoid fillers and hedging words. Words like like, I guess, or maybe undermine authority because they signal uncertainty. Instead, pause briefly if you need a moment to collect your thoughts. Silence is far more powerful than words that diminish your credibility. Similarly, avoid overusing qualifiers such as "I think" or "I feel." While it's natural to express opinions, framing them with confidence, "I recommend," "I believe," or "the data shows," creates an impression of certainty and expertise. Authority is rooted in decisiveness, and your choice of words directly communicates that trait. Sentence structure and rhythm also influence perception. Short, punchy sentences convey decisiveness and clarity, while long, meandering sentences can dilute your message. However, varying sentence length strategically can create impact. For example, a series of short sentences can deliver key points quickly, followed by a slightly longer sentence that provides explanation or context. This balance creates a rhythm that keeps your audience engaged while emphasizing the important parts of your message. Consider power words and phrases. Certain words naturally convey strength, confidence, and action. Words like achieve, implement, transform, strategic, and effective evoke competence and authority. Similarly, phrases such as "based on the evidence," or "it is clear that," or "our approach ensures," signal confidence and decisiveness. Incorporate these words and phrases naturally into your speech to reinforce your credibility and influence. Over time, your vocabulary will naturally shift toward words that enhance authority without sounding forced or artificial.
It's also important to match your language to your audience. Authority is not only about what you say, but how you connect with listeners. Speaking in overly technical terms to a general audience can alienate them, while speaking too casually to a professional audience can reduce your credibility. Understand the level of knowledge, expectations, and cultural nuances of your audience and tailor your language accordingly. When your words are easily understood and resonate with the audience's context, your authority is magnified. Another aspect of word choice is positive framing. Authority is reinforced when your language is constructive and solution-oriented rather than negative or apologetic. For instance, instead of saying, "We failed to meet our targets," reframe it as, "We identified areas for improvement and are implementing strategies to exceed our targets next quarter." Positive framing communicates control, optimism, and proactive thinking, all of which are hallmarks of authoritative communication. Practice paraphrasing and rephrasing as a way to strengthen clarity and impact. When explaining complex ideas, try to express them in multiple ways until the meaning is crystal clear. This technique not only ensures understanding, but also demonstrates mastery of the subject. Being able to explain a concept in several ways without hesitation signals confidence and authority. In discussions or meetings, this skill allows you to guide conversations smoothly and reinforce key points without seeming repetitive or uncertain. Storytelling intersects with word choice here as well. When you use precise, vivid words in stories or examples, your message becomes more engaging and memorable. Instead of saying, "We had a problem," say, "We encountered an unexpected technical challenge that required immediate attention." The latter statement paints a clear picture, emphasizes your involvement, and communicates authority through specificity and structure. Another critical technique is strategic repetition. Repeating key words or phrases throughout your speech reinforces your points and signals confidence. For example, a business leader might say, "Innovation drives our success. Innovation drives our growth. Innovation drives our vision." Repetition emphasizes the core idea, making it more memorable while asserting authority through consistency. Finally, combine vocabulary mastery with delivery. The most powerful words lose their impact if delivered without confidence, clarity, or presence. Integrate your refined vocabulary with vocal techniques such as controlled pacing, strategic pauses, and emphasis. When words, tone, and body language align, your authority becomes unmistakable. You should understand that the words you choose, how you structure your sentences, and the way you frame your message directly influence how authoritative you sound. Precision, active language, positive framing, tailored vocabulary, and strategic repetition all enhance your presence and impact. Authority is not about impressing others with complex words, it's about conveying clarity, decisiveness, and confidence in every sentence. When your language is intentional and aligned with your vocal mastery and storytelling, your English speech becomes not just effective, but powerful. Now that we've covered mindset, vocal mastery, storytelling, and word choice, it's time to focus on confidence in public speaking and real-life conversations. The situations where authority is tested the most. Speaking English with power is not just about preparation and technique, it's about stepping into situations where you must communicate under pressure and projecting assurance even when the stakes feel high. One of the most common barriers to authoritative speech is fear of judgment. Many people hesitate to speak English in public because they worry about pronunciation, grammar mistakes, or being misunderstood. But authority is not about being flawless, it's about projecting confidence regardless of minor errors. Think of leaders you admire. Rarely do they speak without mistakes, yet their words carry weight because they speak with intention and poise. The key is to focus on the message rather than the mechanics. When your mind is set on delivering value, your voice naturally projects confidence.
Preparation is the backbone of confident speaking.
Before any conversation, meeting, or presentation, anticipate potential questions or challenges and prepare clear responses. When you know your material thoroughly, hesitation decreases and your speech becomes smoother and more authoritative. Preparation also includes practicing common phrases, transitions, and responses so that your language flows naturally under pressure. The more familiar you are with your content, the less mental energy you spend worrying and the more authority you project. A critical aspect of real-life confidence is active engagement with your audience or conversational partners. Observing body language, facial expressions, and verbal cues helps you adapt your speech in real time. For instance, if a listener looks confused, you can rephrase your point or provide an example to clarify. If they appear interested, you can expand on the idea with more detail. Authority comes from responsiveness and adaptability, the ability to guide a conversation effectively while maintaining control of the narrative. Role-playing exercises are extremely effective for building real-world confidence. Practice speaking in simulated situations, delivering a pitch, explaining a concept to a peer, or participating in a discussion. Role-play allows you to experiment with tone, vocabulary, pacing, and gestures in a safe environment. Over time, these simulations help you internalize authoritative behaviors, making them instinctive in real situations. Another essential skill is handling interruptions and objections gracefully. In conversations, especially in professional settings, you may face challenges, disagreements, or interruptions. An authoritative speaker maintains composure, listens actively, and responds thoughtfully. Instead of reacting defensively, take a brief pause, acknowledge the other person's point, and respond with clarity and confidence. For example, "I understand your concern, and here's how we can address it." This approach demonstrates control, intelligence, and respect, all of which enhance your authority. Eye contact and physical presence are crucial in live interactions. Eye contact signals engagement and confidence, while posture communicates authority. Avoid looking down or shifting constantly, as these behaviors indicate uncertainty. Instead, maintain a natural stance, use open gestures, and make eye contact with your listeners or conversational partners. Even subtle adjustments in body language can significantly influence how your words are perceived. A relaxed, confident presence amplifies the impact of your speech. Let's also discuss handling nerves effectively. Nervousness is natural even for experienced speakers, but it can be managed through techniques such as deep breathing, visualization, and grounding exercises. Before speaking, take a few deep breaths. Inhale slowly and exhale fully. Visualize a successful interaction where your words are received positively. Ground yourself by feeling your feet on the floor and your body aligned. These techniques calm your mind, stabilize your voice, and enhance your ability to project authority. Strategic use of pauses is particularly powerful in live conversations. Pausing before responding to a question or after making a key point gives your audience time to absorb your words. It also conveys that you are thoughtful and deliberate rather than reactive. Many people feel compelled to fill silence with words, but in reality, pauses reinforce authority. Silence can be your ally when used intentionally. Building rapport while maintaining authority is a delicate balance. While authority is about confidence and decisiveness, people respond better when they feel respected and understood. Use empathy and active listening to connect with your audience. Acknowledge their perspectives, validate concerns, and address questions thoughtfully. Authority is amplified when people trust you, not fear or dismiss you. Being approachable while firm in your message creates a powerful combination. In real-life conversations, clarity and simplicity remain paramount. Avoid overcomplicating sentences or using jargon unnecessarily. Speak in clear, concise language that your audience can easily understand. Simplicity conveys confidence because it signals that you understand your topic well enough to explain it without relying on complex words or convoluted phrasing. Authority is not measured by how complicated you can sound, but by how clearly and effectively you communicate. Another important aspect is rehearsing difficult conversations. Whether it's negotiating a salary, giving feedback, or leading a discussion, challenging interactions test your authority. Plan key points in advance, anticipate potential objections, and practice responses. Rehearsing helps reduce anxiety, improve fluency, and reinforce confidence. By approaching difficult conversations with preparation and composure, you project authority even in high-pressure situations. Feedback loops are critical for continuous improvement. After speaking in meetings or social settings, reflect on what went well and what could be improved. Did your tone convey confidence? Were your sentences clear? Did your body language reinforce your message? Seek feedback from trusted peers or mentors who can provide constructive observations. Continuous refinement strengthens both your skill and your confidence over time. Finally, remember that authority grows gradually through repeated practice and real-life application. Confidence in English is not an overnight achievement. It develops as you consistently challenge yourself to speak, interact, and assert your ideas. Each conversation is an opportunity to strengthen your voice, presence, and influence. When you apply these techniques consistently, you speak not just English, but English with power, persuasion, and unmistakable authority. Now that we've explored mindset, vocal mastery, storytelling, word choice, and real-life speaking confidence, it's time to focus on the power of listening and response in authoritative English communication. Speaking with authority isn't just about delivering words, it's equally about how you receive, process, and respond to information. Active listening and responding thoughtfully positions you as a confident, intelligent, and persuasive communicator. Many learners underestimate the importance of listening in authoritative communication. Active listening involves more than just hearing words. It requires understanding the meaning, emotion, and intent behind what's being said. When you truly listen, you gain insight into the needs, concerns, and perspectives of others. This allows you to respond with precision, empathy, and authority. For example, during a meeting, if a colleague expresses concerns about a project deadline, an authoritative response doesn't simply dismiss their concern. Instead, it acknowledges the challenge and presents a clear, confident solution. I understand the timeline is tight. Here's how we can reallocate resources to meet our goals efficiently. This demonstrates both comprehension and decisive problem solving. Another key aspect of authoritative listening is avoiding premature responses. Many speakers feel the urge to reply immediately, fearing silence or losing control of the conversation. However, taking a moment to process what was said before responding conveys thoughtfulness and confidence. Strategic pauses allow your mind to organize ideas and craft a precise, impactful response. This small habit can transform your communication from reactive to authoritative. Paraphrasing and summarizing are powerful tools for demonstrating active listening and reinforcing authority. By restating what the other person said in your own words, you show that you fully understood their point. For instance, so what you're saying is that the client expects weekly updates rather than monthly reports, correct? This technique not only confirms understanding, but also sets up a foundation for a clear and confident response. When listeners feel heard and understood, they are more likely to respect your authority and trust your perspective.
In addition to listening actively, asking insightful questions is a hallmark of authoritative communication. Questions guide conversations, clarify uncertainties, and signal engagement.
Thoughtful questions also position you as a curious, intelligent, and strategic thinker. For example, instead of asking, "Do you think this idea will work?" you could ask, "What are the potential challenges we might face if we implement this strategy, and how can we address them effectively?" This reframes the dialogue from uncertainty to problem solving, reinforcing your authority. Responding assertively without aggression is another essential skill. Authority is conveyed through calm, confident articulation, not by dominating the conversation or dismissing others. Even when disagreeing, maintain a respectful tone and present your perspective clearly. For example, "I see your point and it's valid. However, based on our data and past experiences, I recommend this alternative approach because it has a higher likelihood of success." This approach balances respect with decisiveness, projecting authority while maintaining rapport. Reading nonverbal cues is another critical aspect of authoritative listening and response. Observe facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice to gauge engagement, agreement, or confusion. Adjust your responses accordingly. If someone looks confused, clarify your point with examples. If someone appears interested, expand with more detail or context. Reading these subtle signals allows you to guide the conversation effectively, reinforcing your authority through awareness and adaptability. Another key strategy is controlling the emotional climate of a conversation. Emotions can amplify or undermine authority. A calm, composed demeanor in tense situations demonstrates confidence and control. For example, if a debate becomes heated, remaining steady, listening attentively, and responding thoughtfully signals that you are composed and credible. Emotional regulation ensures that your message is heard clearly and that your authority remains intact even in challenging interactions. Building credibility through informed responses is vital. People naturally respect speakers who provide well-supported arguments. When responding, cite facts, examples, or data where appropriate. For instance, according to the latest market research, our target demographic has shifted preferences, which is why this approach is likely to succeed. Authority is strengthened when your words are backed by evidence, showing that your recommendations are thoughtful and reliable rather than impulsive. Active listening also enhances rapport, which indirectly increases your authority. When people feel heard, they are more open to your perspective. Small gestures, nodding, summarizing, validating concerns create a sense of connection. Authority is not about intimidating others, it's about guiding, influencing, and inspiring confidence. People respond positively to communicators who are both competent and empathetic. Practicing reflective responses is another technique for strengthening authoritative communication. Instead of rushing to answer, pause to reflect briefly on the implications of what was said. For example, "That's an interesting observation. Let me consider the impact of this approach on our overall strategy." This reflective approach demonstrates thoughtfulness and decisiveness, two key traits of authoritative speakers. Over time, practicing this habit trains your mind to respond strategically rather than reactively. Let's also consider the role of humility in authoritative communication. Confidence does not mean arrogance. Acknowledging when you don't know something, followed by a commitment to find an answer, can enhance your credibility rather than diminish it. For example, "I don't have the exact figures at the moment, but I will review the data and provide a detailed update." Humility, combined with decisiveness, signals integrity and strengthens long-term authority. Finally, integration of listening with vocal and verbal skills creates a complete authoritative presence. The way you respond vocally, tone, pace, and emphasis, combined with precise word choice, storytelling, and clear body language, ensures that every interaction communicates competence, clarity, and confidence. Authority is most powerful when all elements, mindset, voice, vocabulary, listening, and presence work together seamlessly.
Having covered mindset, vocal mastery, storytelling, word choice,
real-life confidence, and active listening, it's time to dive into the power of persuasion and influence in authoritative English communication. Authority is not just about being heard, it's about compelling others to understand, agree, and take action based on your words. Mastering persuasion elevates your speech from informative to transformative, making your English not only powerful, but impactful. The foundation of persuasive authority lies in credibility, logic, and emotional appeal. Credibility, as we've discussed, comes from preparation, knowledge, and composure. Logic involves structuring your ideas coherently, using evidence and reasoning that makes sense to your audience. Emotional appeal, often underestimated, connects your audience to your message on a human level. Persuasion becomes most effective when these three elements, credibility, logic, and emotion, work together seamlessly. One key technique in persuasive speaking is framing your message strategically. How you present your ideas influences how they are received. For instance, instead of saying, "We need to change our process because it's inefficient," you could frame it as, "By implementing this improved process, we can save time, reduce errors, and improve team productivity." Framing emphasizes benefits and solutions, which positions you as thoughtful, knowledgeable, and solution-oriented, all qualities of an authoritative speaker. Another powerful approach is using evidence effectively. Facts, statistics, and examples enhance your credibility and make your arguments more convincing. However, the way you present evidence matters just as much as the evidence itself. Avoid overwhelming your audience with excessive numbers or technical jargon. Instead, integrate evidence into a story or practical context. For example, instead of stating, "Market growth increased by 7% last quarter," you might say, "Our careful market analysis last quarter identified key trends leading to a 7% growth in revenue, a clear sign that our approach works." Evidence coupled with narrative engages the audience while reinforcing authority. Storytelling as a persuasive tool deserves special attention here. Stories are memorable, relatable, and emotionally engaging. When trying to influence others, framing your argument as a narrative can dramatically increase its impact. Consider a manager trying to convince a team to adopt a new tool. Instead of presenting a dry list of features, they might tell a story. "Last month, our team faced a delay because of miscommunication. With this tool, we were able to collaborate seamlessly, avoid mistakes, and meet our deadline ahead of schedule." The story illustrates value, demonstrates effectiveness, and persuades through lived experience. The principle of reciprocity is another subtle but effective method of persuasion. People are more likely to respond positively when they feel their contributions are acknowledged, or when you provide value first. In conversation, this could mean acknowledging someone's idea, validating their input, or offering insights before requesting agreement or action. For instance, "I appreciate your perspective on client outreach. Building on that, I suggest we implement these additional steps to enhance engagement." By recognizing others and positioning your ideas as complementary rather than confrontational, you reinforce authority and influence. Clarity and simplicity remain critical in persuasive speech. Authority is amplified when your ideas are easy to understand and actionable. Avoid overcomplicating sentences or using unnecessary jargon. Instead, distill complex ideas into clear, concise points that the audience can grasp immediately. For example, a persuasive sentence like, "Implementing this strategy will reduce errors, improve efficiency, and increase client satisfaction within 3 months," communicates multiple benefits clearly and convincingly. Another important factor is confidence in delivery. Persuasive words alone cannot convince if your tone, pacing, or body language undermines your message. Speak with controlled volume, steady pace, and deliberate emphasis. Use gestures to highlight key points. Make eye contact to establish trust and connection. Your physical presence, aligned with your verbal message, reinforces authority and strengthens persuasion. Handling objections gracefully is another hallmark of an authoritative, persuasive speaker. When someone challenges your idea, resist the urge to react defensively. Instead, listen actively, acknowledge their point, and respond thoughtfully. For example, I understand your concern about the timeline. Let's review the process step by step and see how we can ensure efficiency without compromising quality. By addressing objections calmly and constructively, you project competence, control, and confidence, making your argument more persuasive. The art of rhetorical questions can also enhance influence. Well-crafted questions engage the audience, provoke thought, and guide perception. For instance, can we afford to ignore these market trends when competitors are already capitalizing on them? Or how will our team benefit if we streamline this process? Rhetorical questions subtly direct attention, encourage agreement, and reinforce the authority of your perspective. Repetition of key ideas strengthens persuasion as well. When you repeat important points strategically, you reinforce their significance and ensure they are remembered. For example, consistency is key. Consistency in communication, consistency in execution, and consistency in follow-up will drive results. Repetition emphasizes core messages without sounding redundant when done deliberately and with emphasis.
Building rapport while persuading is essential. Authority does not mean imposing ideas. It means guiding others to see your perspective while respecting theirs. Use empathy, active listening, and validation to connect with your audience. When people feel understood, they are more likely to be influenced by your reasoning. Authority and persuasion work best when paired with trust and mutual respect. Finally, practice integrating all skills into persuasive communication. Combining mindset, vocal mastery, word choice, storytelling, listening, and response creates a powerful platform for influence. Your words become compelling, your delivery confident, and your presence commanding. Persuasion is the natural outcome of authority in action, the ability to communicate effectively while guiding others toward understanding, agreement, and action. You should understand that persuasion is a cornerstone of speaking English with authority. It involves strategic framing, clear evidence, emotional connection, confident delivery, and respectful interaction. Mastering persuasion elevates your communication from simple speech to influential dialogue, enabling you to inspire trust, respect, and agreement. When you combine persuasive techniques with all the other elements we've covered, your English speech becomes not just authoritative, but transformative. Now that we've explored mindset, vocal mastery, storytelling, word choice, confidence, listening, and persuasion, it's time to focus on the power of body language and nonverbal communication. Speaking English with authority is not just about what you say, it's about how you carry yourself. Your posture, gestures, facial expressions, and overall presence communicate confidence, credibility, and influence even before you utter a single word. The first element to consider is posture. How you stand or sit affects not only how others perceive you, but also how you feel internally. Standing tall, with your shoulders relaxed, feet firmly planted, and head held high, signals confidence and authority. Slouching, crossing your arms tightly, or avoiding eye contact can unintentionally convey uncertainty or nervousness. Practice maintaining an open, upright posture during conversations or presentations. Over time, this becomes natural, reinforcing your authoritative presence effortlessly. Gestures are another essential component of authoritative nonverbal communication. Hand movements, when used intentionally, can emphasize key points, illustrate concepts, and maintain audience engagement. Avoid fidgeting, repetitive gestures, or excessive movement, as these can distract from your message. Instead, use deliberate gestures, open palms to signal transparency, controlled pointing to emphasize specifics, and sweeping motions to indicate scope or scale.
Gestures should complement your words, reinforcing the authority of your speech rather than competing with it. Facial expressions play a powerful role in conveying confidence and credibility. A calm, composed, and approachable facial expression communicates assurance, while a tense or overly rigid expression can create discomfort or doubt. Smiling subtly when appropriate can build rapport, while maintaining seriousness when discussing critical points reinforces authority. The key is alignment. Your facial expressions should match the tone and content of your message. When expressions and words are synchronized, your speech becomes more persuasive and authoritative. Eye contact is one of the most potent tools for projecting authority. Sustained, natural eye contact conveys confidence, honesty, and engagement. Avoiding eye contact can suggest insecurity, while staring excessively may intimidate. Practice maintaining eye contact with individual listeners or the camera if speaking in video presentations. Alternating between looking directly at people and scanning the audience ensures inclusivity and signals control. Mastery of eye contact creates a connection with listeners, enhancing trust and influence. Another critical aspect is micro-expressions and subtle cues. Micro-expressions, brief, involuntary facial movements, can convey emotions such as surprise, skepticism, or concern. Being aware of your own micro-expressions helps prevent unintended signals, while observing those of others can guide your responses. For example, noticing slight confusion on a listener's face can prompt clarification, demonstrating attentiveness and reinforcing authority. Awareness of these subtle cues adds sophistication to your communication. Proximity and personal space also influence authority. Standing too close can feel aggressive, while standing too far may seem disconnected. Maintaining an appropriate distance, adjusted based on cultural context and setting, ensures that your presence is assertive yet respectful. In one-on-one interactions, leaning slightly forward can signal engagement, while in group settings, maintaining balanced spacing projects inclusivity and control. How you occupy space communicates as much authority as your words.
Movement and positioning in the room or environment affect perception as well. Purposeful movement, walking slowly to emphasize points, or positioning yourself near visual aids, draws attention without distraction. Avoid pacing nervously or shifting constantly, as this can signal anxiety or lack of preparation. Strategic movement reinforces your confidence and authority, guiding the audience's focus and maintaining engagement. Synchronizing body language with vocal delivery amplifies authority. For example, emphasizing a key word while using a controlled hand gesture enhances impact. Lowering your voice while leaning slightly forward during a critical point signals seriousness, while pausing with open palms communicates openness and honesty. Integration of vocal and physical elements ensures that every message resonates powerfully. Mirroring and matching is another subtle technique that enhances influence and authority. Mirroring involves subtly matching the posture, gestures, or tone of your conversational partner. This builds rapport and signals understanding without compromising your own presence. Authority combined with connection increases persuasion and credibility, making others more receptive to your ideas. Confidence under pressure is also communicated non-verbally. Even when faced with challenging questions or tense situations, maintaining composed body language reinforces your authority. Avoid defensive gestures like crossing arms, shifting weight nervously, or avoiding eye contact. Instead, breathe steadily, stand or sit upright, and respond calmly. The ability to remain physically poised under pressure strengthens perception of competence and leadership. Another often overlooked aspect is appearance and grooming. While the essence of authority is not superficial, professional attire and neat presentation contribute to credibility. Dressing appropriately for the context and setting signals respect for the audience and the situation, complementing your verbal and nonverbal communication. When your appearance aligns with your message and setting, it reinforces overall authority. Practice and self-awareness are essential for mastering body language. Record yourself speaking. Observe gestures, posture, facial expressions, and movements, and adjust areas that may unintentionally undermine authority. Over time, intentional nonverbal habits become natural, reinforcing the impact of every word you speak. Finally, remember that body language is a reflection of internal confidence. The more you cultivate genuine self-assurance, the more natural and persuasive your nonverbal cues become. Authority is most compelling when it arises from authenticity rather than forced gestures or posture. By combining confident body language with all the verbal and vocal techniques we've explored, your English communication transcends mere conversation. It becomes a commanding presence.
Now that we've explored mindset, vocal mastery, storytelling, word choice, real-life confidence, listening, persuasion, and body language, it's time to focus on the art of mastering pauses, pacing, and rhythm in speech. Speaking English with authority isn't about speaking quickly or constantly filling silence. It's about controlling the flow of your words in a way that commands attention, conveys confidence, and enhances understanding. Timing in speech is just as important as the words themselves. Let's begin with pausing. Strategic pauses are powerful tools that emphasize important points, allow listeners to absorb information, and give you a moment to gather your thoughts. For example, when delivering a critical statistic or insight, a brief pause before and after stating it signals its importance. Our customer engagement has increased by 42%, pause, in just 3 months. The pause draws attention, creates anticipation, and reinforces authority. Silence, when used intentionally, can be far more compelling than a rush of words. Pacing, or the speed at which you speak, is another key element. Speaking too quickly can make your message difficult to follow and can suggest nervousness or uncertainty. Speaking too slowly, on the other hand, can seem unnatural or overly deliberate. The ideal approach is to vary your pace depending on the content and context. For instance, slow down when explaining a complex concept, speed up slightly during energetic storytelling moments, and maintain a steady rhythm when emphasizing key points. Mastery of pacing demonstrates control and keeps your audience engaged throughout your speech. Rhythm and intonation add another layer of authority to your speech. Monotone delivery, no matter how grammatically perfect, can lose an audience's attention and weaken your impact. Authority comes alive when your voice rises and falls naturally, emphasizing the critical parts of your message. For example, when making a crucial recommendation, you might lower your tone slightly to signal seriousness. This strategy will change the way we approach client engagement. Intonation conveys emotion, confidence, and credibility, subtly reinforcing the power of your words. Another important aspect is chunking information. Break your speech into digestible segments rather than delivering long, uninterrupted blocks of text. This makes your ideas easier to follow and more memorable. Use short sentences for clarity, followed by slightly longer explanations when context is needed. For instance, we need to focus on 3 priorities: efficiency, innovation, and communication. Efficiency means optimizing our workflow. Innovation involves introducing new tools. Communication ensures everyone is aligned with our goals. Chunking enhances comprehension while making your speech appear organized and authoritative. Emphasis and stress on key words also reinforce authority. Identify the words that carry the main ideas in your sentences and pronounce them with slightly more weight. For example,
We must prioritize client satisfaction above all else. Stressing the word prioritize signals importance and draws attention to the central point. Mastering emphasis ensures that your audience retains critical information and perceives you as a decisive communicator. Breathing and voice control are closely linked to pacing, pauses, and rhythm. Controlled breathing supports consistent vocal strength, reduces nervousness, and allows you to maintain authority throughout long speeches or conversations. Practice inhaling deeply before speaking, exhaling steadily as you deliver sentences, and pausing naturally at punctuation marks. This coordination of breath, voice, and timing ensures your speech sounds confident and deliberate rather than rushed or anxious.